You're talking to Eric and Jamie.
There's
How are
no
you doing?
blasphemy because there's no God to be offended. How you doing?
I'm well. Thanks for taking my call. I called a few weeks ago, and I talked to Eric and V. And, at the end of the show, I hung up and said, God bless you. And you were very gracious to me, Eric. I just want you to know that I apologize. I didn't do that on purpose.
Oh, dude, you know what? Actually, I saw you in the comments. I honestly, when it's a habit, it just is a habit. And I totally get that. You didn't mean anything malicious. That's the way you understand.
I'm making all kinds of statements like I did it, to be an ass and stuff. And I did do it by habit. And I just wanted to say, again, that I'm sorry. It is a habit.
No worries, brother. Appreciate it. But
so what if at the end of this call, sorry, that was a little jumping, we to you or Eric to you to make things even?
No, not evening it out. Nope, not even gonna. Nope.
May the result of science benefit you.
That feels condescending to me, though.
Oh, it is condescending as shit, and I would never use it in any other circumstance. But I don't want Fred to feel bad.
No, Fred doesn't deserve it.
Right.
In fact, I actually want to use this as an object lesson, though, for people who are not religious, for people who are atheists, who immediately jump to the idea that somebody's being cruel or callous or snarky, when odds are that's just not the case. We can listen charitably, and I think that we can all benefit from doing that.
You're very gracious. I appreciate that, because, I do. But, my call was, I was listening to your call from Brandon from Arizona. I was going to call about something else, but, he was talking about the prophecy about Israel and stuff, and you said that you wanted something more specific. Mm-hmm. And when I had called a few weeks ago, you said that it was too specific, so people fulfilled it. It seems like you're playing it either way,
Ooh, that's actually a really good question.
It's also possible, in Eric's defense, that prophecy is just a terrible way to try and demonstrate the truth or validity of a prophet, right? Like there are psychics that have predicted, name a recent terrorist attack from the last 10 years. And in part, it's because they've predicted, they predict 500 and one of them is correct. And then no one remembers the 499 other ones. And that's in a world where we have internet and Google, and those are published online with a date.
Really
now imagine...
That's not really...
It's true. But why would we... If we accepted that a person successfully predicted the future, this is sort of my response, why would that validate other claims that they made? Because a person can correctly predict the future and then say, oh, and my dick is 9 feet long, right? But that doesn't mean that...
You would pass out.
I mean, that's not a problem that I don't have a 9 foot. It's a hypothetical.
Like you would get aroused and you would pass out from lack of blood.
I don't like that example. I wish you'd,
Sorry, Fred. That's
clean it up a little.
Sorry, that they also said that they were capable of running a 2-minute mile, right? But it doesn't mean that they're the Flash if they can predict the future.
That's really not addressing the question that I asked. It's like about playing both sides.
So here's the thing is there are problems with prophecies that are not specific, and there are problems with prophecies that are specific, and that's, I believe, because at the core, using prophecies is a flawed venture.
Well, so let's go into the specifics, because I think Jamie's absolutely right, and I think it's a really good way. We should absolutely clarify it. So let's get to the nitty-gritty of it, right? Fred, do you have the specific thing that I had spoken about? Do you remember exactly?
It was about Israel coming back as a nation.
Okay. And
from being scattered all over the world and then coming back.
And I believe that my response...
to me, it was very specific. He said who it was, where they would go from, where they would go to, where they would come back to. Well, and you said that the world got together to make it happen. Mm-hmm. And because it was specific, they were able to do it. You wanted something more, if it wasn't so spelled out, that it would be more credible, or that if you went and dug it up or something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was saying that it was too specific,
Sure. I absolutely get where you're coming from with that, because I could absolutely see you going, Eric, how come you're... And if I miscommunicated or I poorly communicated what I was trying to say, then you're giving me an opportunity to clarify. So I appreciate it. So when you have something that is put out with an indefinite date and you motivate people to make it come true, if they work together and make it come true, it's unremarkable, right? If you have something that's incredibly specific and you only hear about it after the fact, then odds are that it was created after the fact and is wholly unremarkable. Those are different things. And I don't know if I'm very clearly communicating that, but when you have something like, when Brandon called in and he wanted to talk about so many days after this prophecy, the Savior, Messiah, would walk into these gates, and then the only place that that's ever recorded is in the same book that prophecy is, all it's doing is propping itself up, but there's nothing actually tying it to the real world. And then you do have things in the real world.
But I'm going to tie it to the one that I did talk about. Israel really did come back. They were scattered all over the earth, and the Jewish people, and they did come back to Israel.
What if it would have taken?
Not the one that,
Sure. What if it would have taken 500 more years, 2,000 more years? Eventually, if it happens, then it's true, right? What if it took 10,000 years? You just never got to live to it.
Of course. Well, do you think that the Jewish people would have remained a separate people from the nations? And again, we talked about this, that the people, Israel, be scattered out, would have remained a separate people from the nations they existed in. Without having a homeland for that long.
When you have a people that are maligned in such a way, yeah, they do maintain their culture.
Say they did that for for more than 1,000 years.
Do you know?
There isn't necessarily a reason to.
And the religion, what God, what they did, what in the Bible, what was told to do. That's what kept them separate. But,
actually, they didn't have a whole lot of choices either. Do you know why you're Jewish if your mother's Jewish? Do you know why that's a thing?
Why? You're Jewish if your mother's Jewish?
Yes. Yeah. So your Jewish heritage runs along the mother's side. Do you know why?
Mother's line. Correct. Yeah.
Do you know why?
No, my wife is Jewish. I don't know why. I should.
Yeah. No. It's okay. I'll tell you. It's because of rape.
Uh-huh.
Right? You'd have Roman soldiers and people from other countries who would go in and go, okay, we're going to eliminate them by fucking them out of existence. I'm going to rape you, and your child will be a Roman child because I'm a Roman.
Shame on those Romans.
Absolutely. Shame on anybody who would physically, sexually assault somebody. I agree. But if you say, okay, no, it runs along the mother's side, then you can look at them and go, cool, you're going to make more Jews. Right? They rolled with the punch, yeah. But that is just an example of a culture shifting to try and change to maintain its integrity and maintain its existence to survive. I mean, that is an example. There are lots of examples like that.
Yeah. It still doesn't, I see, again, the prophecy, it's like, if it's fulfilled, it's because it was too specific. If it's not, it's not, I still say, it's kind of like you're like either way.
So can I jump in here, Fred, real quick? Because your objection, I very much understand why it's a thing. And I think at the root of it, it's because you are looking for a prophecy that is persuasive evidence for a God. And we don't find claims of prophecy persuasive for the same reason that we don't find claims about answered prayer specific, which is, among other things, no one counts the misses, and a general prayer, for example, of, man, I hope something good happens today, can be fulfilled by looking at, anyone's positive test results at test results at a hospital, right? Someone figures out their cancer's gone into remission. I can claim that that's an answer to my prayer, but it's very general.
Yeah,
and I can
Sally
pray
down the hall died.
Yeah, and I can pray very specifically. I can pray very specifically that so-and-so's cancer will go into remission, and it might. And we can say, okay, well, that's a thing that can happen without the force of God. So why would a person saying words in relation to it be persuasive? Because ultimately, prophecy is a person saying words about what will happen. And a person can say words about what will happen asking God to make it so, or saying that God is going to make it so. And the difference really only comes down to the way that we talk about those claims. Are you with me so far?
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. So I don't find someone saying, well, I prayed and they were healed persuasive. And I don't find someone saying, well, a long time ago, someone said that God would make something happen on the political sphere, and it did, persuasive as well.
I mean,
yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I can understand. Well, I understand you're not a believer, and that, but it just seems, like I said, I think
Well,
you're playing both sides of the fence. I think it's kind of. I don't think that's. It's kind of like
playing both
whichever way is convenient for me. That's the way I'm going to go.
No. So your statement of you're playing both sides against the fence only holds water as an objection if there's a fence. There isn't. There isn't at its core, what a prophecy is unpersuasive. And there are many specific problems that can arise based on it. But ultimately, when we're talking about prophecy, we're talking about a person or people that wrote down a thing that was a prediction of the future. And whether it's general or specific, it won't really impress me. But one of the things that we point out is that when a person a long time ago says something will happen, and it's very general, it's easy for human beings to look for that basic pattern and find something that fits it, right? And when it's very specific, it's possible for human beings that are aware of that prediction to go, that would be a good thing. That is a good idea. I'll make it. And so those are two different objections that point out different problems based on the characteristics of a prophecy. Because ultimately, whether a prophecy is specific or general, the fact that a long time ago a person predicted a thing, that even if we accept, okay, it definitely happened, that doesn't persuade me that a God exists or that an itinerant rabbi was also God and died to save us from original sin, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not, that claim, that assertion isn't good evidence.
I understand that. Okay. You know what? Gosh, I have to go. I have to take my boy to work on my phone.
No worries.
Okay,
we got to get to the next call anyway. But
I'll call back next week, and I have something else for you, okay?
Sounds good.
Cool.
Take care, brother.
Yeah.
Thank you. I love you guys to death. Bye-bye.
Yeah, cool.
Bye.
And then actually, in quick summary, it doesn't demonstrate that isn't necessarily something that God would do. It's just that a person claiming that it isn't persuasive. And in fact, the existence of a prophecy is non-falsifiable because you can always say, well, it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. Well,
or, oh, wait, this one happened to happen.
And if you
or something that I attribute to it. Yeah,
well, I know. I want to add on. That's all.
Please.
So if you were to hold them to the same standards and you were to go, okay, no, we're going to hold these, every fulfilled prophecy will count as for and every non-fulfilled prophecy will count as against. Can we do that? Because there are a lot of prophecies in the Bible that haven't happened. But then you could say, well, it hasn't happened yet, and that's when you get to Jamie's piece. But on the other hand, you do have prophecies that people try and make fit, right? I believe there's a prophecy that says that the Messiah will be born in Nazareth, and then another that says that the Messiah will be born in Bethlehem. Now, you do have someone after the fact who said, well, no, we can make them fit because there was a census. But you look back historically, and that census did not take place in that time frame. So no, it doesn't actually work. Yeah. If that's the case, does that throw the whole thing out? Because if it doesn't, that means that you're pointing out something that really your belief doesn't hinge on. Yeah. And while I understand, and I'd like to be able to talk about this for epistemological reasons, I'd really like to find out what is holding you to it, because that's what I want to address. But